the phantom passenger. Ella's hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel, her gaze flitting back and forth from the empty road ahead to the rear-view mirror where shadows seemed to cling more persistently than the night outside. The old Honda Civic hummed beneath her, a comforting sound against the oppressive silence of the desolate highway. She had left her college campus hours earlier, eager to reach the safety of her childhood home after receiving the unsettling news of her grandmother's sudden illness. Her GPS had suggested a shortcut that turned out to be a secluded stretch of road surrounded by dense forests that loomed ominously in the moonlight. As the miles stretched on, an unsettling feeling crept over Ella. She first noticed it as a faint whisper, like the rustling of dry leaves, but it grew in volume until it mimicked a soft, insidious muttering. She tried to dismiss it as the sound of the wind or a faulty engine belt, but when she turned down the radio, the noise persisted, closer this time, as if it were coming from inside the car. Ella's heart raced, her breath quickened. She peered into the back seat, her eyes straining to make out any shapes in the darkness. Nothing. Just the usual clutter of college life, books, a spare jacket, some fast food wrappers. Laughing nervously at her own paranoia, she focused back on the road, attributing the noises to her imagination, fueled by stress and fatigue. But then, as if summoned by her acknowledgement, the temperature in the car dropped, a cold that seeped into her bones, making her shiver uncontrollably. The whispering became a moan, a mournful and angry sound that filled the car. Ella's breath misted in the air, her fingers now icy on the wheel. She blinked hard, sure that her mind was playing tricks on her. Suddenly, the car's lights flickered and the dashboard dimmed. In the wavering light, Ella saw it, a fleeting movement in the mirror, a shadow shifting in the back seat. She screamed, swerving as her eyes darted back. The road veered sharply and she wrestled the steering wheel, narrowly avoiding a collision with the guardrail. Heart hammering, Ella pulled over, her chest heaving with panicked breaths. The car idled as she sat, frozen with fear, staring into the mirror. Everything was still now, the only sound her labored breathing and the idling of the engine. With trembling hands, she reached for her phone. The screen's glow, a small comfort. No signal. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She was alone, utterly isolated. Determined to understand what was happening, Ella steeled herself and turned to face the back seat directly. Her eyes adjusted slowly to the darkness. There was no denying it this time. A figure, pale and translucent, sat curled up on the far side of the car, its features blurred but unmistakably human. Ella's voice was a whisper, barely audible. "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure shifted, its head tilting as if considering her. Then, in a voice that dripped with malice and sorrow, it spoke, the words echoing in the confined space of the car. "You cannot outrun the past." Chills ran down Ella's spine. Her mind raced, trying to piece together any forgotten lore or family stories that might explain this haunting. But the spirit wasn't waiting for her to understand. With a sudden rush of movement, it lunged forward, passing through the seats like mist, its face inches from hers. Ella screamed, her body reacting before her mind could, shoving the car door open and stumbling out into the night air. The ground beneath her feet felt unstable, the darkness around her pressing in. She could hear it behind her, the sound of the car door creaking as the spirit followed. Running blindly, Ella plunged into the woods, branches clawing at her face and hands. She could feel it behind her, hear the soft moan turning into a wail of rage. The forest seemed endless, and with every step she feared she would never escape, that her life would end here, swallowed by the dark and the vengeful ghost of a past she couldn't remember. Ella's breath came in sharp gasps as she pushed through the underbrush, the ghostly whispers now a cacophony in her ears. The cold seemed to follow her, an icy shroud that clung to her skin despite her exertions. Behind her, the spectral presence pursued relentlessly, its form occasionally flickering between the trees, a haunting silhouette against the moonlit night. As she ran, her mind whirled with confusion and terror. Who was this spirit, and why had it attached itself to her? Was it merely a product of the road, a random haunt, or something more intimately connected to her or her family? Desperate for answers and respite, Ella spotted a small clearing ahead and darted towards it, hoping to gain a moment to think and plan her next move. In the clearing, the moon shone brightly, casting eerie shadows that danced across the ground. Panting, Ella spun around, searching for any sign of the spirit. The forest around her was ominously silent now. The whispering ceased. She took a cautious step back, her eyes darting frantically. Then the voice came again, softer, more coherent, laced with a sorrow that was palpable. "Return what was taken," it said, the words floating through the air like a lament. "Taken? What was taken?" Ella cried out, frustration and fear making her voice crack. "Tell me what you want." The air shimmered, and the spirit appeared before her, more defined now. It was a young woman, her features sorrowful and worn. "The locket," she whispered, her voice echoing with 1,000 memories. "Return it to its rightful place. Only then can I rest." Ella's mind raced. The locket! She remembered now, a silver locket she had found in her grandmother's attic, tucked away in an old, dusty box. She had thought it merely a trinket, an antique with no particular value or significance, and had kept it, charmed by its old-fashioned intricacy. "I didn't know," Ella stammered, her voice trembling. "It's at home. I can bring it back." The spirit's face softened, a hint of relief mingling with the enduring sadness in her eyes. "Hurry!" she implored before fading away, leaving Ella alone in the moonlit clearing. With a newfound urgency, Ella retraced her steps back to the car. The whispers had ceased, the night now holding its breath as she drove away from the haunted stretch of road. The drive back was a blur, her mind occupied with thoughts of the locket and the spirit's mournful plea. When she finally arrived home, the first rays of dawn were breaking over the horizon. She rushed to her grandmother's attic, her fingers quickly finding the locket exactly where she had left it. The silver was tarnished, but when she opened it, the photos inside were still clear, images of a young woman and a stern-looking man from another era. Ella returned to the road later that day, the locket secure in her pocket. As she approached the place where she had first encountered the spirit, anxiety gnawed at her insides. Stopping the car, she stepped out, the locket in her hand glinting in the sunlight. "I brought it back," she called into the woods, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I'm sorry it was taken from you." A gentle breeze stirred the leaves, and the air grew warm around her. The spirit appeared one last time, her expression now one of peace. "Thank you," she whispered, her form gradually dissolving into the light, until nothing remained but the rustling of the trees. Ella stood there for a long time, the weight of the locket in her hand, a tangible reminder of the thin veil between past and present, between regret and redemption. She finally placed the locket gently on the ground, where she had first heard the whispers, a small act of restitution for a restless soul. As she drove away, the road seemed less ominous, the shadows less menacing. She knew she would never forget the phantom passenger, a spirit intertwined with the locket's forgotten history and her family's unspoken past. But now there was a sense of closure, a story concluded with the setting of the sun, and the quiet comfort of resolution.
If you enjoyed this chilling story, let us know by smashing that like button. We upload new spine-tingling tales every week, so subscribe to our channel and hit that notification button so you never miss an episode. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback shapes our future uploads. Stay spooky, and we'll see you in the next video.